Hey there, everybody. I decided to do a live show tonight because I got a very interesting question, and and it prompted a number of things. First off, I think I posted my first video like 6, 7 years ago, and everybody knows that this is not the fine arch toppery. You're not going to see Ken Parker. I'm going to show you stuff that has been with Ken Parker. I'm going to show you stuff that's been with John D'Angelico and Jimmy DeQuisto right here, right now. And let's start off with this. If you guys think that I am some redneck who talks too much and just has a great opinion of himself and his ability to go to a yard sale and pick up some guitar that his parents couldn't afford in the cheapest catalog in the 60s, you are correct. There's some other stuff you're going to learn too. That comes in pretty handy, but the question was, why are you sanding against the grain? And of course, I'm Ken. If you think that I just wait with bated breath for everyone to come in, because I've got 6,501 subscribers after all this time. We're dealing with a very niche world where people are dealing with building guitars out of garbage, and they look like garbage, but they might play. So this is not the Fine Guitar Finish channel. This is not George Gruen. This is not that Jamie guy where we're talking about heavy duty instruments. This is not Woodworking Today. This is not endorsed by Martha Stewart, and it is not who's that person they sell Chick Flick Teal stuff at Walmart, the Prairie Woman or something. No, none of that. You got discovery as it happens. Now, I do happen to have a great deal of experience with something called trees, and I think that's where our wood comes from. But let's get this straight. This is one of my guitars. Let's look at it real close. How does that finish look to you? Well, it looks to me like it's scratched up. How's that binding look? Looks yellowy and something's wrong. What about this? Is that a pick guard? Who puts matchbooks on a guitar neck that blocks your ability to see what's going on? Is that a truss rod cover? What's that bead there? What is all this? What's this gauge for besides absolutely nothing? That's a Curtis Novak pickup. That's cool. But guys, this is what you get. If you're not looking for this, then go away. And I'm not waiting for you at the plumbing aisle. Hey, tell me where you're from. Man, I knew somebody had TIJ Fridays after the bankruptcy. You're right. Missouri. I used to live in Canton, Missouri, cultural capital of the world, about 18 miles from Hannibal. Anyway, we're talking about sanding. So we're doing the housekeeping disclaimer. Now, every once in a while, I get these comments. I am not waiting in aisle 3 for you to come into Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever your improvement store is, and just waiting with bated breath for you to come running in at 9:55 p.m. to say to me, well, what about this? Why about this? So you don't know nothing about it and you're questioning, or you're coming from the top end of knowledge and you're questioning what I do. So if you say, for example, in a theoretical world that never existed, never will exist, why are you standing against the grain? I might say something like, I give up. Why? And it's funny because someone will go, okay, you hurt my feelings, and now da 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 and whatever. And we go down the Hallmark path, And I got too many mother-in-laws. I had so many collection of mother-in-laws. I'm way past that. Let's get into what it is you're thinking, because we're supposed to share here. If I'm the only knowledge you're going to get here, you need some help, brother. So let's talk about. Um, is that, yeah? That's good. We'll go with that. So, why do I build guitars? Well, those of you that have been around a long time, you know that I had a daughter, and she was not verbal. And I was told one time that she was going to be between 4 and 7 months old cognitively when she was an adult. Okay, think about that. And she was constantly fitting into the 1% or lower percentile of performance in anything. So think about that. Everybody does everything better than your kid. So being nonverbal, having some physical challenges or whatever, I said, what makes you make that analysis? Because that's pretty, that's pretty firm. The kid's never going to grow up. She's already 5, and you're telling me she's between 4 and 7 months old cognitively. That's the best it's going to get. Lack of emerging math skills. So I said, hey, what does that mean? So at 7 months and 8 months, those of you that know this story, sorry, think about somebody that in your life that might be going through this, and then we'll do something about that on a personal level. Advocate for them. So anyway, lack of emerging math skills. So I thought, my daughter would respond to music, especially slide guitar music. And I realized I don't play music. I don't play guitars. I just build them. And I thought, what math is going on at 7 and 8 months old? Because face it, I haven't seen very many toddlers crawling on the floor with a Texas Instruments calculator. And so it dawned on me, music, sheet music, it has lines. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I know that part. And the notes look different. Some of them are full, they're colored in, some are half colored in, some have flags, some it dawned on me, wait a minute, this is like 4-dimensional algebra going on here. If someone understands music, they have to have a foundational understanding, at least inherently, to what beat is, because it's all numerics, trust me. So since she couldn't talk, since the person didn't understand the sign language she was using, they would say it's all appropriated because she has fine motor skill problems. So again, every reason to discount her. So I made her a guitar, and I found a C6 Steve video. If you don't know who he is, you should. He fills stadiums in Europe. But it was made out of a cigar box, and it had matchbooks and stuff. So I made one, and I made a stomp box out of a Mississippi license plate, and I sat her in a chair and turned on a camera. And when I handed her the guitar and put the stomp box in front of her, she strummed the guitar in rhythm and hit the stomp box. This is the first guitar. Can you tell how I sanded this one or no? Oh, by the way, I used to call this the sin side. It's all the stuff we used to do when we're not supposed to. By the way, that's C6 Steve's signature. North Mississippi All-Stars are on here. And even Dan Magnuson, who plays drums for C6 Steve, and now they are joined by John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin. So that's where all this started. So at some point, Tammy was able to sign her name. That was incredible. There's an occupational therapist at the school district was intent on that. It was the biggest thing, because if a child does not talk and people don't understand sign language, how would they know what the child's name is if they got put away? Okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. If you want to ask me a question, I will put question marks in front of it, and then I'll sort through it at the end. I need to stay on track here. I'm like the poster child of ADHD. So anyway, one thing led to another, and the story went out, and I need to quit looking at this down here. I will get to you guys, trust me, hang out. So the story went out, there's a little girl out there who is somehow playing a guitar, even though she's supposed to be infantile, and her dad is making guitars. And the story spread around because I took the movie I took of her playing that guitar into what's called an IEP, Individual Education Plan, at the school, trying to figure out where she was going to be, what her education was going to look like. By the way, if you want to know how to navigate special education, you found me. There's a channel I have called CDLS Dads, CDLS Dads. It is about Cornelia-de-Lange syndrome, which is what Tammy had. And I have 10 years of school board experience. Yeah, I don't dress like this up there. I put the suit on and play all that game. So there's that part of me. And I am a tree guy. I'm actually a tree guy, but I don't trim trees. You can kind of tell that I'm a little bit out of shape. But I have worked for the Wind Corporation. I had most of the major Vegas casino contracts. I've done time with Disney, and I have been in an opulent city. Oh, that's a good one, dude. I'm going to get to that question in a minute. But I have been the administrator and program director for the urban forestry program in a city that everyone in the United States and Europe knows. It's a destination place. And when you get deeper into it, you're going to learn in a minute, I do pretty well at explaining tree structure, especially how wood loads and unloads, failure predictions, and that type of thing. And I have a background in running cranes in the Texas oil field. So this is where this charming personality comes from. On any given month, you would be able to see my reports on tree type things and all that. It's going good, man. B3Z. Who is this? Cool. It's going good. But you'll find that I've had papers published about the dynamics of trees and wind and why they fail and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, if you get into the court records, you'll find out that I had a case involving ficus trees go to the California Supreme Court. So I've got this kind of three thing, but this is who I really am. The rest of it, I mean, the suit doesn't make me. But I am able to talk about sanding and why and what grain looks like and take it from a practical perspective where you will look at a board differently and you will understand what it might mean to how your guitar plays. I have a prolific collection of mother-in-law's Handy the Man, at Handy the Man. I have no grandchildren. Isn't it sad that my genetic food chain will not be on the earth? My namesake daughter has a very promising career coming up, and a lot of the musicians that have my guitars help her keep her focused. Believe it or not, she made her first dollar selling merch for Bob Log III, whose guitar this is. See, it says Bob up there. And here's Tammy. She signed it. Okay? So, let's look at a couple of these other questions. Electric budget guitar. So, let me ask you this. Are you interested in putting a guitar together yourself? If you are, there are some kits available that are kid-sized kits. Your first stop might be StewMac, especially if you have a membership to their free shipping club where you get parts. But there are guitar kits out there where, in fact, I have one that I've never built. And if they were interested in it, I would do an episode because you guys, you know, my YouTube channel and my Instagram channel gives you clips and blurbs of what's happening while I'm doing it. Like right now, here is the guitar this is called the North Star Junkpile. And the question originated from this figured maple because I was sanding with the figuring here and not like this. Okay? So, but there are kits. The used guitar market right now is bottomed out. So I don't want to mention a lot of names here and get anybody in trouble. Remember, I work in a governmental process. I'm a serious person. These worlds don't cross. Paul Mero, I used to move palm trees. You'll find that my technical papers are about palm tree diseases, structural dynamics, why they break off in wind, all this. One of the links that you would find is that I'm on the front page of the LA Times over palm trees. They must have been low on news that day. Anyway. So, first off, if I were you, I wanna find out, can you go in to, that's cool, but I'm gonna tell you this, forget the brand, okay? I've got a couple, I mean, let's look at what I do behind the scenes and stuff. This looks tore up from the floor up. It's got 4 different eras of patching because of this cello top was made in somewhere between 1720 and 1750. It's 275 years old. I work on stuff like that. I think I'm known for, in the background, being able to do structural repairs on instruments that have been let go or have some value if they're brought back together. But back to the question. Your local music store is dying because everybody is selling direct from the factory. And a lot of times people don't understand. The big names, they're getting their guitar bodies from the same place I am. I'm just getting the lower, the rejected stuff. And believe me, I know what my guitars are. They're called Junkpile for a reason. So, wherever you live, find out where the local music shop is, or somebody that's renting violins, cellos, selling saxophones, whatever it is. There's a guitar shop somewhere, okay? And you want to go in and you want to level with them. Number one, you want to figure out, you can go on Amazon and you can get a guitar to the door that has pretty good quality and playability for $250. Just look on Amazon. But if you go to your local guitar store, they're going to have some used stuff there. And you tell them what your budget is. And you tell them, this is not going to be a forever guitar. Find out if they take stuff back in trade. Guitar 48 in Ventura, California, cultural capital of the world. Rob over there will get you in a guitar regardless of your budget. And when you grow out of that guitar and you want something a little technically better, you can bring it back, and as long as it's not tore up, you're going to get a portion of your money back to trade in. And I would approach it that way. You want to remember, if you're trying to play guitar, you're talking to the wrong dude. I don't play. But you want to be comfortable. You don't want to have to fight it. And you want to be able to amplify it. So you need an amp and whatever. So figure out what your budget is. Go look around, sit down with a few. They're not there to talk to you. Remember, the profit margins on these stores are pretty bad right now. But they got stuff and it's sitting around. And then if you practice, you're going to get better. And then you just go back in there and you're keeping a local business alive. The problem with ordering something online is there's nobody there to do the setup. So you're getting what you're getting, and if you're brand new, you don't even know what you're looking at. And some of your playing problems can be the nut is too high, something is wrong, the neck isn't right, the bridge is in the wrong place. Can be any number of things. Anyway, look at your local guitar store. Start there. And then when you learn a little bit about guitars from there, if they don't have anything for you, you might kind of tell them, well, keep your eye open for me, because people come and trade stuff in, and there's good market there. You want to keep that guitar store open, because when they're gone, all you got is a okay? So let's talk a little bit about me getting a drink of water, and then we're going to talk about wood, okay? I want you to take a look at this piece here. Dug out of the firewood pile. Don't tell me how you cut firewood or... Yeah, that's another good place. A pawn shop is a great place. But you got to remember with them, they are going to get it for a great price, and they are going to give it to you. They need to make money. And some people will take a really good guitar with a warped neck or something like that. And yeah, go in there, look around. Iron Label, yeah, $1,500. I can show you 6 guitars that are worth $1,500 collectively that I can make play like. Anyway, I want to stay on track here. We're going to talk about grain and how to do some finishing from an operation like this. So you guys know that if you cut down a tree, it's gonna look like this. You're gonna end up with a stump. That stump, you see the circles in there. So I'm gonna be putting stuff up and down. So trees, when it comes to how they deal with wind and stress and how they stand up on their own without falling down, is trees are meant to take gravitational loading just straight down. All of this up here is pushing down here, kind of like our body over our feet. Once we start getting off center, the likelihood that we're going to fall down becomes increased. But go with this. Trees put on rings every year, okay? Like this. And there would be smaller ones and smaller. So let's say we're able to put cans in here that are bigger and bigger and bigger. By the way, I did an episode called something about rig up trucks. Find that one. It talks a lot about bridges on flat tops versus arch tops and floating tail, trapeze tail pieces and all that kind of thing, and the stresses that go on the guitar and strings and whatever. But if I put another can that's barely big enough to fit over this and another one, and put something in between that we would call airspace, you would see what's in between. That's what forms the rings that you're looking at when a tree is cut radially across rather than axially, axis up and down. So those cells between the area between the rings are called parenchyma cells. They unload starch and water. So a tree has an ability, there's not a direct line of water. It puts the water and starch that is made in the leaves, blah, 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 and stores it and mobilizes it when it's needed. So this tree is getting bigger and bigger. By the way, when you leave the branches lower, the trunk gets bigger faster. When you cut branches off, just wherever you do, they call it topping. You get all this growth that's not well attached, etc., etc. But let's say that we have ring after ring after ring, and the tree starts getting 20 inches in diameter. It's got a big crown. It pushes down. The tree likes that. What the tree does not like is not like to be side loaded or twisted torsionally. All that happens up in the crown of the tree. So when the wind comes along, the leaves on the tree, whether it be like a sycamore or a maple tree that are big, like shaped like this, or lance-shaped leaves, they start pivoting. And it works to bunch things up. Some of them cup up, some of them turn, but the tree is trying to take the wind that's hitting it, and the individual elements of the tree move around by themselves, and that reduces the sail effect on the tree. Now, that starts off the leaves, it starts off in the branch hierarchy, so you got things moving around like this. The whole idea is do not develop a uniform sway motion like the side of a building sitting out there in the wind. Have you ever noticed that? Remember, I used to run cranes. Have you ever noticed that you'll see cranes up in the skyline, the ones, the tower cranes, and they're moving like this at night? Nothing is going up and down, and there's nobody in it. Well, they've unlocked the house, the pivot, the Rotec bearing, and they let the thing plane with the wind, like a windmill. Because if you lock the house down and the wind is hitting it like this, your boom starts the long part that's all pinned together, it starts doing like this and side loading, and then the pins that hold the boom together waller out. You don't want that. So when the wind is hitting, it just whips around and floats with the wind. That's a good idea. If I were running a billboard company and I'm going between LA and Vegas and there's a sandstorm and the wind is blowing 65 miles an hour. By the way, if you want to say something, just say it in here, whether it's on topic, off topic. Try to keep it about guitars. Don't be a freak. This is a family channel. There's going to be kids watching. Remember, it all started about a little kid that couldn't talk. So fire away. But anyway, let's say the billboard's on the freeway. If the wind is blowing 65 miles an hour, there's sand everywhere. Are you looking to see what the buffet in Vegas at the Tropicana, which isn't there anymore, would be and how much it is? Of course not. You're looking at the road. So does it make sense that they could put a giant spring, and when the wind picked up, the billboard would float out of the way and align with the wind, and then when it came back, it would lock in when it was less than 15 miles an hour, instead of the whole thing getting destroyed anyway? That's the way trees work. They work to minimize uniform sway loading. When that all becomes uniform and everything is, what happens is it sends torsion down the trunk because of the big branches all send loading down. Some are bigger, some are smaller. And what it does is it causes a great deal of torsion. Trees don't like torsion. They break at the trunk. And if you think about what I'm telling you, I can push down on this can a great deal, but the minute I go like this, it caves. That's how trees work in terms of loading. Now, let's get out my blackboard. By the way, I showed you how to make one of these that has holes in it. When you're wiring up harnesses, you really don't want to. It's just easier to put the potentiometers. I'm looking for it. It's around here. I got it going on a project. But you can set up your three-way switch wherever you want it to be, and where your potentiometers are going to go, and your grounds and all that, and set this up on a surface and just sit here and solder everything, and even draw out with a dry erase marker where things go so you don't get confused. But anyway, this makes it good. They sell this stuff at your major home improvement store. Typically there's a blackboard on one side and a white board on the other. Now, trees have 4 zones. This will be on the arborist test. 4 zones of compartmentalization. So if the tree gets injured, it works to block off that area and stabilize it so rot doesn't spread through the tree. So there's a zone that goes up and down, up and down. It is controlled by the branches that come off of the trunk, like so. Same thing happens in the branches, not the trunk. So if I have a branch here and I have a branch here, the tree is going to try to limit decay spreading between here and here. There is a zone, if you're looking at the tree where the rings are, there is a zone that protects things coming in and things going out from inside the tree. Most people don't know this, but the formula for the strength of hollow trees is basically, you notice that they build columns on steel buildings and stuff like this. So instead of assuming that you have to make every pipe solid, the wall thickness of the pipe needs to be thick enough where the center part can be okay. Typically what they'll tell you in arboriculture is up to, you start getting up to only 30% is left and 70% is hollow. The tree can still function. Does that mean you want to leave hollow trees on the street? No, it certainly doesn't. I don't want to get into all that, but there is a zone that stops it from going here. Now there's something else I want to tell you that most people don't know. You cut down a pine tree, in addition to the rings, you're going to see something that looks like this. Okay? Let me show you here. They look like this. They almost look like a sunburst. What those are is, let's flip this over. The tree takes in, it takes water in, it lets go of water as it's needed. So there's got to be a place where that water is, and I told you it's between the rings that go up and down the tree. So the vascular elements, the one that everyone is thinking, oh, I'm going with the grain, with the grain. See that? If you look close at this cello top, you can see there's spruce grain there. It goes with the grain. Well, between those rings is the parenchyma tissue. Okay, I need to be careful with that. Okay, so let's say that those vascular bundles are here. Here's another row, and in between there's parenchyma cells. Well, if they take up a lot of water, because trees will take up as much water as they can when it's raining, because there's nobody out there, believe it or not, nobody's out there at night when you can't see them with a hose watering trees. And Rainbird did not put sprinklers in all the forests and hide them where you can't see it. So sometimes the cells are full, sometimes they're not full. So there has to be a way for those cells to expand and contract without causing a great deal of disruption of the rings and the individual components there. So there has to be a buffer area. And what these things that I'm showing you here that look like sun rays, they're called ray cells. And they're actually like, they look like this. And then the rings go around them. So when the tree is taking up water, this ray cell will close like this. Okay? When the tree is dispersing water or running low on water, they open up really wide like this. Now, here's the problem. If you get out into this area and they open up really wide because the tree's under drought stress, and this opens up so wide that this tears at the end, what will happen is you will have a failure. They call it summer limb drop out here, unexplained phenomenon. No, if this rips, what will happen is the area between here and here will twist, and you always see what looks like perfectly good wood. It's very sappy when this happens, and the limb is hanging there, but the ray cells have ripped open. So you've got the annual rings, got parenchyma cells in between, you got branch whorls, or branches are coming off, and you got the ray cell. So I want you to think about this. If I have a piece of wood and I cut it radially across the stump, I've got end grain. That is the end of the vascular bundles that are running up and down in the annual rings. Now, if I look at that cut just straight up and down, you'll see grain, you'll see straight grain. Some trees have better straight grain than others. Branches mess up straight grain. When branches come into the picture, the tree has to put on more tissue around the base of the branch. So the quickest way for your young trees to get a fatter trunk is to leave the lower branches on, because in order for those branches to grow, they have to put on more wood. Of course, you don't want that when you are looking at a piece of spruce that is big enough to make an arch top out of, or a cello. I want you to look at this very closely. This came out of Italy in 1940. There's no branch whorls, there's no knots. This is cut out of a tree log, and it is split like this, and then what you do is you split it here, and then you lay these sides together, and it's called book matching, book ending, whatever you want to do. This is the grain running straight up and down. So when you look at a guitar like this is a grain pattern. This is not a paint job. When you look at the sides of this, by the way, this is under staining. The grain on this runs like this, okay? So if I'm gonna sand this, I'm gonna follow the grain. This, guys, if you think you can explain what this is, it's obvious that somebody didn't cut this straight up and down. They cut it diagonally and lengthwise, and what you're basically seeing is a combination of the ray cells and the sides of the annual rings. That is what, this is cut this way on purpose, you see that? But it's still bookended. Does the grain run up and down? Yeah, kind of. But if I'm gonna retain that figured maple, which way am I gonna encourage everything to go? It's gonna be with the maple, the figures. If I go here, I'm gonna go this way. If I go here, which way is the grain back here? This is not that great of a piece of wood. It's not meant to be exposed. So part of it, there's a branch whorl right there. It's putting on irregular stuff here. Everything is growing around it. So which way would I sand this? Would I take the individual and go like this? No, I'm going to use a finer, can you see that? Yeah. See the pattern? So if the idea is that you're going to have to sand in a certain way all the time, not so much. Then you want to figure out, what is it that I'm doing in sanding? Now, I have a file folder over here that is full of sandpaper. It starts at 80, which is, if I take 80 grit, it's very rough. It moves a lot of wood. But say, for example, this pack right here has 1200 grain. It's wet, dry sandpaper. I use a piece of bone underneath it, and I do fine work. So when you see me working this, these bodies come in nice, and I always use a White Ball 80 rag and go over it, because if that White Ball 80 rag hangs up, it tells you that things aren't smooth enough. You're going to have it hanging up and showing in your work. Now, I want to ask you a question. Can you tell the different angles that were cut in the wood to produce these patterns? So try to think about that when you're looking at the wood. Next thing, is this flat? No. So if I'm taking this big piece of spruce, by the way, this piece is ungodly expensive. I'm going to show you a project that I'm going to do that's really incredible, and it's going to be kind of confusing as far as the question about sanding goes. But is this flat? No. So was it flat? Well, it depends. Some of the Harmony and K guitars, they would literally take a steam stamp and put a piece of wood that was basically cut out like this, okay, and just stamp it until it had an arch. They also use veneer to do the same things, but if you are carving an arch top or a cello top out of this, you are literally scooping out the wood. So you get this, you split it, you matchbook it up, you put them together where everything lines up. Could be with the figured maple, could be with the lines and these cellos and stuff, but you're scooping stuff up. So I want you to think about this. You've got a straw, you got a series of straws, they're all in a circle. You can tell by the grain pattern how thick that is. You could actually measure it. But anyway, I am scooping this out, and on one side I'm scooping down so the top is domed. You follow me? And then when I flip that over, I'm scooping, so I'm leaving wood up here and carving down to the side and the opposite in the bottom. So when I'm carving that and I'm taking all these straight grains, the individual grains get cut. They might be halfway through. Look at this like a bunch of straws all lined up, and they're flat, and I want to make them curve down. That means some of those straws are going to get cut off, and depending on how the arch is and how everything's done, you're going to have exposed vascular elements the more you carve, okay? So when I'm talking about sanding and going with the grain and following what's going on, you do not want to put a bunch of stuff on there that makes the wood really wet, because when they say it raises the grain, what it's saying is it's taking wood that is not alive but will still absorb stuff. Consider it like a sponge, a dry sponge. You put moisture on it, it gets bigger. So when you're talking about raising the grain and using products that raise the grain, and then you're working it while it's really wet, you're going to end up with a lot of fiber and stuff. So the choices about sandpaper, the tools you use, the way you move the tools, like going on the backside, downside of an arch, when you're finally trying to get everything smoothed out and everything is rough and all that. If you're going against trying to go uphill, you're going to snag those grains, or if you're going down, you're going to be going over the top of them. So a lot to do. I've got, like I said, a business file folder that goes everywhere from 80 up to 2,000. And you'll take a lot of scratches out of that. Let's look at a project. Remember what this channel is. I don't build fine guitars. I build guitars, and people like them because they want to feel like they're part of a story. And the story is about kids who have struggles, and it's part of a success story. Eddie Van Halen would not be using one of my guitars, and if he did, he could play it like he played anything else. He could play a guitar. Are you a prima donna, or do you just want to play a guitar? So if you're going to get into this business and thinking that you're going to compete against, this is not a money-making business. And you notice that I don't have ads running. I'm not encouraging you to buy things. I will tell you, buy this artist's instrument. There's a little girl out there whose daddy drove down here to play my daughter's memorial service because she liked his tunes, and he was killed in a motorcycle accident about a month and a half ago. And I'll tell you, give this family some money. There's a little girl out there without a daddy. So in terms of me, I'm a professional arborist. I have the job that I think everybody in the United States who does what I do would want. And I'm very fortunate to have the people in the community that will fund the level of work that makes me so successful. I can talk about how trees work and some other obtuse thing. Does that make me an engineer, a sonic specialist? No, it doesn't. I'm just Ken, and you see the most real part of me. I do, again, have some experience with navigating government systems and bureaucracies. And while we're talking about that, this is what I was telling you about before. You can make something to solder up your connections if, say, for example, this was your guitar that you were working on right now and you were doing your own wiring harness. You see that? Yeah, cool. Anyway, let's talk about a little project while I got you here. I need to get this. If this falls over on my toe, I would have to stay home from work and work on junky guitars all day. No, don't give me any ideas. Anyway, I want to show you something pretty cool. There's an episode about this. See how the grain runs here? If I was going to sand this, I would probably sand it this way, right? I wouldn't be going like this with 80 grit and thinking it was going to look good if I wanted to be perfect. Likewise, I think if I went across it with 2000 grit, you wouldn't even be able to tell. And if I think if I make crappy looking stuff like this, it will blow the walls out of a dive bar. I don't think anybody's looking at the fine finish. Here is my sandpaper file. Ooh, there's a bunch of it in there. That's a pretty good way to do it. They also make plastic ones. Make sure that you're not in Phoenix or Vegas and trying to use one of those. But I want to show you something pretty cool here. I had a guy get a hold of me, and it was through a search, and I had a search going for Jimmy DeQuisto, who studied under John D'Angelico. We're talking good archtop makers, great archtop makers. And this guy that was advertising this stuff on Marketplace said, you know, I have a set of sides, and they came from Jimmy DeQuisto's shop, which came from John D'Angelico's shop. Now, I did an episode about this called The Bridge from Gibson to something or other, find it, but it tells the whole story. Anyway, these sides, you want to remember that John D'Angelico basically traced a Gibson L5 in the early 1930s. Gibson was having some problems with quality control. It's in the Depression. Gibson was making off-brand guitars. They're still Gibson. They're made by Gibson, Kalamazoo. There were some Recording King, Wards. There's some Gibson guitars out there with different names on it. So if you're trying to get into an old Gibson archtop, that's probably a good place to start if you don't have a big budget. When you're looking for economy in that market, you might have a lot of cracks, you might have warped stuff, but anyway, know what you're getting into. So anyway, believe it or not, I told the guy what I do, and he had 2 sets of these. And so these are called ribs, siding. This is what you put on to adhere the top or the soundboard or the plate in the back. And you put these inside of here like so. Anyway, the story is that John D'Angelico, when he passed away, Jimmy DeQuisto ended up with the stuff, but he didn't have enough money to pay the estate off the family. Lawyers lent him the money, and then he found himself in a predatory environment in which the lawyers are going, no, you can't just use our stuff that you've been using for years while you worked with John as his apprentice and helper and ultimately his colleague. No, we'll give you X percent. So it's kind of like the way the music industry works. They'll pay for your tour bus and stuff, but you got a 90-10 deal in the background. You got to work 10 years to get the first few paid off. And if you're high and partying it up and don't understand it, just remember the music industry is there to use their skill set for you have to be able to move ahead faster than you could on your own. Not everything about music and the labels is a good guy and a bad guy situation. In fact, I know somebody right now that is working doing advocacy work for people like musical families whose rights passed down, like property or whatever, and keeping those relationships positive and financially okay for everybody. I don't want to get into all that. Anyway, guess what? When Jimmy DeQuisto was trying to pay off everybody, whether you miss a payment or whatever, they come in and cleaned out the shop and just left some scraps. They took everything, all the machines, everything, and some of the stuff was left, which means that these sides, I got two sets, and and the other pieces, and so if these came from uh, Jimmy, they had to have come from John D'Angelico. Okay, and then I've told you about that the person Valenti, who would come in and play the instruments. I did a whole episode on this. Find it; it's very interesting. Anyway, I met Ken Parker through Fred. I went to the Rocky Mountain Archtop Festival. I told him I had these. He actually apprenticed with Jimmy DeQuisto, worked with him for a while, became his colleague. So I said, hey, Ken, you know what? I think these came from Jimmy DeQuisto. So I heard him explain how this was cut. And these are very thick. So I've got a form that I can put them in. I need to get them hydrated again. But let me ask you this. If you were to sand these, what way would you sand? Well, probably depending on where it goes. Would I sand across the figuring? Probably not. Would I sand, how would I smooth everything out? Well, that would be done before they were bent. So the idea here is, I will take something that I can make a back out of. I'm going to take this big piece of Italian spruce that was brought into the country in the 1940s directly from Italy, which is where the great cellos, and there's nothing wrong with this piece of wood. And I'm going to cut it and split it, and I've already planed it so it's right. And then I'll work that, and I will make an arch top for these, put these in a form, and I'll figure something with the back and build a neck. And this will be the worst guitar ever, but when you look at the story that goes into it, you will find out that there is some pretty rare stuff going on here, and I will be happy to pass this along. Get something like this, be careful, understand that wood needs to be hydrated or it will crack. If I would try to bend these into a form right now, it would split, but I'm relatively sure that I've got a pretty good price here because John D'Angelico, Jimmy DeQuisto, and Ken Parker. Sam, out there, taking over for Ken Parker. Loved your new episode about the guitar, the arch top that you just put out. Thank you for keeping this going on at the quality level that you're putting it on. Find Ken Parker Arch Toppery. Find that channel and have a look at it. But he was kind enough to make sure I got these back. I've got 2 sets, and we'll see what happens to them. So I just released the episode today about this guitar, the North Star Junkpile. It's going to be highly personalized. It's going to have some great electronics in it. Hey, Guitar Kit World, thank you. I try to let everybody know whatever comes to me, I just work with what I got here. And the big point is I didn't have to do any real sanding here. The neck pocket and the neck, I wasn't finding glue and everything. Anyway, North Star Junkpile. I released the initial episode today. There's another one waiting in the wings for next week. So when you send me a question, if you want a topic or something like that, send it to Junkpile Guitars, Junkpile Guitars at gmail.com. And if you want to get into bantering, Ignorant bantering, I'm the best. I'm the best. Don't expect that I'm here to wait on you hand and foot. Let's have some fun. I learned my personality in the Texas oil fields. Anyway, thanks, guys. Would you go do something? Says sitting here watching me. Hey, who are you, John? Hey, John. What do you got going on? I got to zip through these questions here. That's yard sale. You bet it is. Let's Destiny. Hey, Destiny. Yeah, the swag on the wall, TGI Fridays. There's a lot of stuff up here. Most of it's got a story. I did an episode called Mrs. Olson is Hot. Oh, by the way, before I forget, you know what today is? Today is National Ken Day. I'm Ken. And it's kind of a joke because my daughter called me and she goes, dude, because I wear bibs sometimes in this orange shirt. They'll be like, she's like, dude, they made a Ken doll that looks just like you. I'm like, I am the Ken doll. Ken came out in March of 1961. I was born in March of 1960. And they had to wait until I was potty trained enough to go on the set. But look at this. It's National Ken Day. I got nothing. She took everything. She still does. And then they get some actor that has no personality like mine, does a movie. People are lowering themselves to wearing T-shirts that says, I'm Knuff. I got nothing, and I'm still fine. I got a collection of guitars that I swear are easily worth at least $100 a piece. I am okay. I'm Knuff. Don't worry about it. Is this eerie? All right, guys, I think I'm going to save this one. And let's jump down to the bottom here again. Oh, wow. I'm going to tell everybody that, John. John, where are you? An address would be cool. That way I know where the bill collector should go. There's like 5 stray dogs that come over here. They've been coming over here for like 5 years. I don't even know where they come from. They want to eat. One's a giant German Shepherd. The other one's some kind of pit bull, something or other. There's 2 of these little dogs that look like they should go to the Vancouver. Oh my, the northern limit of Trachycarpus fortunae, the windmill palm. Have you ever seen windmill palm? You know what? Bob Log the Third will be up by you very soon. Do you know who that is? Bob Log the Third. He wears a helmet that looks oddly like this one. It's got all of his switches and piezo comes out of here, and he sings into this, and he wears like a jumpsuit that's very flashy. Yeah, he'll be up there. He's coming through here, and I think he'll be up there. Just getting into guitar building. So, hey, tell me what kind of guitar you're building. Are you building flat tops or solid bodies, or what are you doing? While you're getting those thoughts together, John, you want to remember what this is. It's a celebration of my daughter's life. There's 30 instruments out there. They're on albums. There's a group in Ireland called the Bonnevilles. They got one of the arch tops. Oh, cigar boxes. So that's probably how you found me. I have literally 60 Camacho boxes over there. That was my standard build, was the Camacho box. It's rough, it's durable, and the fact that it's hinged, and then I would use RV sink drains um, to keep everything where you could open and close it. In fact, I have a lot of the templates right over here. I haven't built one in a while. The idea is when I get off my my job, I've got so much stuff ready um, to build and bought up. And yeah, this is not a business where I'm out there competing with everybody. But the idea about this channel is that people can come and look at it and watch what I've done to build up my stuff. And my instruments are durable enough to go out on the road with people. It doesn't mean they're the best or whatever. But at the end of the day, this is a place for, some of us kids, we waited to see if we were going to get something for Christmas that we never got, or if our parents could finally put the money together to surprise us and we got some off brand or something. This is about people who grew up in a family that had to save up money to get you something for Christmas and how to keep things going on. The guitar business right now, there's literally millions and millions of guitars out there, and there's apparently enough players for them, but it's gotten to the point where it's more about the kit guitar business. For example, I'm gonna kind of level with you. There was a law. I've got some background enough to make me dangerous in law classes. My daughter drugged me off under the pretense she needed a ride and put me in a paralegal class. I'm one class away, but I have either a commission meeting or a school board meeting or a city council meeting on the night that so I'm one class away from being able to be a certified paralegal in the state of California, which gets you doing case intake and basic memo and kind of prioritizing what the issues are and causes of action, and basically acting as a support for an attorney. My job is fairly, it does have some risk and liability. There's expert witness work in my future, especially with palm trees, and I'm known to analyze tree populations with computers and kind of help people develop budgets and stuff, and running the program at work is all that. So anyway, there was a ruling the other day in Germany in which Fender basically said the body, it was either, I think it was the Stratocaster, not the Telecaster yet, but they had filed and said it's unique enough to enjoy copyright protection. So, cigar box guitar guys, I want you to pay attention to this part, because there's a strategy that goes with trying to control competition. Now, if I come up with something that's unique and it's signature me or whatever, like this logo, which by the way Tim Lohman did, but a name, I could go say Junkpile Guitars is my thing. I think that's starting to gain some traction. I got 6,500 people that check in this channel. It's kind of a reference for people, but so what happened is a German court, which kind of I think has implications European wide, ruled that I think it's a Stratocaster, not the Telecaster yet, but that shape of body is unique and it's iconic, and therefore they have a right to it. And the way the court ruling went is the court agreed, and I don't know how the defendant or whatever the action was. I haven't read the case file. I heard it's very, very thick and deep. But I don't know whether the respondents didn't show up or what caused the ruling. I'm sure it'll be appealed and it'll go on forever and ever. But what was happening is the markets in other countries, especially China, where a lot of the kit guitars are coming from, is such that it would make it illegal to import anything into Germany, which means the EU. So now we're talking Europe. The Stratocaster body, again, if I'm wrong and I'm confused with Telecaster, either way, that you would end up not being able to import those, which shuts down production of those copies that are coming in into the European market. And typically what the lawsuits look like is you might be a cigar box guitar builder and you might be taking one of your, notice that I have some templates back here. You know, I did an episode on scarf joints and how to make a scarf joint jig. A few years ago. It's been pretty popular to get that 12-degree angle cut. But I have, in terms of cigar box stuff, I have all these templates that let you put 3 strings, 4 strings. I've cut some myself. But this is the one that will get you in trouble because Gibson trademarked the open book headstock. And without getting into a big long thing, because this is getting way out in the weeds, but people have been subbing out work forever. So Orville Gibson comes in. He comes in from wherever he's from, opens up a shop, starts making these weird ornate with snail designs and mandolins and very ornate stuff, and dresses flamboyantly, has, you know, striped clothes, feather hat, whatever. And these investors come along and they say, this guy's onto something. But the way Orville Gibson was, it's like, okay, today I'm going to build this, and then tomorrow I'm going to put this on here. It's just this never-ending development of ideas, and these guys wanted to make some money, and they thought his product was cool. So they basically threw him out and said, guys, we're going to build this, and we're going to, so that's the way the mandolin orchestra started. Again, I've done some episodes about all this. But before too long, Orville Gibson was not involved anymore. It was in a factory, and even going back into the cello and violin times of the 1700s, Miracourt, Mittenwald were places where people would make copies of the finest instruments, and the labels inside. I mean, people find them at yard sales. This is Stradivari. Everybody freaks out. No, it's a copy of one. It might have been made in, 1850 or something like that. But people have been copying guitars forever. The problem is when you sub your stuff to a factory overseas, don't be surprised if they start taking a few of your instruments That's interesting. Let me get to that in a minute. Anyway, they took a few of these guitars and were making their own copies and knockoffs, so they got sued. Gibson eventually, as part of the suit, took over the factory. But who besides the guys that are making arch tops, Bob Benedetto, Ken Parker, now Sam, Cohen Top, I think, is his name here now. There are guys hand carving arch tops now, but so what this means is you get these guys that will order 20 kits and they'll do everything they can to make them look exactly like, I would say, oh, this is a Gibson ES 175. It's not. It never was. It never will be. The electronics that are going into that guitar are awesome. By the way, when you order a kit, the electronics in it are great. If you're going to build a guitar for yourself and want to play it. This guitar here, the Texas Junkpile, that was rescued out of a store window. Oh, everybody thought once I got the neck back on it and the back put back together that it was the Gibson ES 175. No, it was a knockoff from the 60s. So, the thing about these kits is this. I I tell people, do not do everything you can and put a Gibson sticker on it. It's forgery. It's fraud. I mean, is anyone really, if you get somebody to believe it's one and they pay you for it, what are you doing? Are you going to get on your YouTube channel and talk about what you did? So I think the manufacturer that I work with, which is Guitar Kit World, they figured out that I'm basically saying, don't do that. Order a guitar, build it for yourself, learn. If it's the only one you ever build, that's great. If you decide you want to build a couple more and give one to your school, give one to your grandkids' school, donate it to a music program, give it to a kid that you know is having a problem, help them build it. I think that they value that along with Ted. They've been very supportive of Tammy's story. So, don't forge guitars. Just build your own. There's not one out there that looks like anything I built. I mean, how many of these have you seen? And of course, there's always going to be somebody punking me about what it looks like or whatever. But I'll tell you something while we're here. Bob had a song. Bob Log III had a song called The Rattler. Sign language for snake is this. So Tammy liked that song, and she could actually try to play a piece of it. Bob would show up on her birthday over the television from wherever he was at, Australia, whatever. But every night he plays, if you see him live, he's going to say, this one goes out to Tammy, and he'll play a song called The Rattler. And yeah, try looking at it like that's what you're doing, because that's what I'm doing here. I'm a forester. I know a lot about wood. I've run cranes. You have to understand how things load and what failure potentials are. But there's a person right here with this guitar. Things are coming together with this guitar that are just kind of very bizarre, to the point where they're a little bit more than coincidence. So I'll be back to work on this. The neck on it will be in soon. I've got stuff coming in from here and there. Again, it's individualized. And then the pickups will go in it. There'll be a screamer. It'll go off to somebody, and they'll be happy. And that'll be the end of that story. Guys, I know this is long, and I'm going to put it in the catalog, but just remember, anything I do could be cigar boxes, could be whatever. Hang on. Old Victoria. What's a Victoria? Tell me about what a Victoria is. I'm not familiar with that, and my search function isn't working right now because I'm jabbering on with y'all. Okay, guys, jump in here. While we're in here, if there's something you want to know about, I'll see if I can find somebody who can help you. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.